What happens when a homeless man offers half of his only sandwich to a basketball star? Marcus had lost everything: family, job, dignity. Steph was the idol of millions. No one could predict what was about to happen that morning in Oakland. Would a gesture of generosity in a moment of desperation be able to completely change two lives? A story that will make you question everything you believe about second chances. Fate was about to prepare a surprising turn. The gray of Oakland embraced the November morning like a heavy mantle. Marcus Johnson felt every centimeter of his 45 years of life coursing through his tired bones while adjusting his jacket, too thin for the cold that cut through his skin. His fingers, hardened by years of struggle on the streets, trembled slightly when he picked up the plastic bag where he kept his few belongings. Marcus's story was a complex mosaic of hope and adversity. Born into a working-class family in Oakland, he had grown up knowing the value of hard work and perseverance. His father, a factory worker, and his mother, a cleaning assistant, had taught him early on that dignity did not depend on possessions, but on character. At 25, Marcus was a promising industrial technician. His talent for solving mechanical problems was recognized throughout Oakland. Working at Oakland Manufacturing Solutions was more than just a job. It was a vocation. Each machine he fixed, each system he optimized, represented more than simple maintenance. It was an art, a way of understanding the world. It was during this time that he met Elena Rodriguez, a social worker passionate about community projects. The love between them was born of a deep connection. Both believed in the power of community, in the possibility of transformation through dedicated work and compassion. The wedding was simple, but full of love. The party took place at the local community center, with friends, family, and co-workers celebrating the union. Michael was born 2 years later, bringing a new dimension of happiness and purpose to the couple's life. Everything seemed to follow an almost perfect script. Marcus was a respected technician. Elena developed important social projects. Michael grew up healthy and intelligent. They had a modest but owned apartment in a lower middle-class neighborhood in Oakland. The first major rupture came with the back injury. An ordinary workday, an ill-made movement, and his spine betrayed him. The doctors were clear. Without specialized surgery, there would be no complete recovery. The treatments proved too expensive, consuming all the family's savings. Elena endured for a few months. She watched her husband fighting against depression, trying to reinvent himself, searching for jobs he could do. But financial pressure was relentless. One day, she simply left, taking Michael. He remembered with painful precision the last day he saw his son. Michael, then 16 years old, looking with a mixture of hurt and disappointment. They were not words of hatred, but a silence that hurt much more, like a clean cut that bleeds without making a sound. The first months were a blur of recovery attempts, job searches, debt negotiations, stubborn hope of starting over, until reality pushed him to the streets. It was not an abrupt movement, but a slow and inevitable sliding. At the municipal shelter, Marcus learned the unwritten rules of urban survival. How to preserve his dignity in a space where privacy was an impossible luxury. How to ration each resource, each food crumb, each earned cent. His routine was meticulously planned. In the morning, he would go to the public library, his point of connection with the world. There, he would charge his old cell phone, check emails, keep alive a flame of professional reconnection, hope. On that specific morning, something was different. The air seemed to carry a peculiar energy. Marcus could not explain it, but he felt that something would change. His sandwich, meticulously guarded, half already consumed to calm the morning hunger, was carefully protected. The worn but clean shoes revealed much about his personality. Even in adversity, Marcus maintained a sense of dignity that distinguished him. Each piece of clothing, each object in his bag, had a story, a meaning beyond simple material value. His eyes scanned the urban landscape with the attention of someone who knows every inch of the city. Oakland was more than a place. It was his intimate geography of survival. Each corner, each sidewalk, each bus stop held memories of his daily struggles. The Chase Center stood not far away, imposing, a symbol of a city that celebrated its sports heroes. For Marcus, it was just another reference point in his daily survival journey. Michael's photograph, yellowed by time, was stored in his identity document. The last image he had of his son, a smiling young man wearing a university sweatshirt. It was in these moments that loneliness hit him the hardest. He often thought about his son. Michael was in college, studying mechanical engineering. The last information he had obtained, through discreet social media searches, indicated that the son was doing well, but had never made contact. When he decided to cross the street towards a small diner, Marcus had no idea that his life would change forever. Life, after all, reserves surprises in the most unexpected moments. At that moment, he was just another anonymous face in Oakland's urban vastness. A man struggling to move forward, carrying stories that no one asked about, memories that no one heard. The cold November wind seemed to whisper transformation secrets. Marcus Johnson walked, not knowing that his journey was about to gain a new chapter. Each step was a declaration of resistance, each breath an affirmation of hope. The movement in front of the Chase Center pulsed with Oakland's characteristic energy. Fans, journalists, employees, and supporters mixed in an urban dance that defined the city's rhythm. Steph Curry was arriving for another training day, his presence so well known that it almost became part of the landscape. Marcus walked slowly, his discreet gaze contrasting with the surrounding excitement. His sandwich, meticulously preserved, was more than food. It was his connection to daily survival. Each bite represented a careful strategy of rationing resources. The November morning embraced the city with a cutting cold. Marcus adjusted his thin coat, trying to minimize the temperature's impact on his body, already beaten by years on the streets. His steps were slow, calculated, each movement revealing the experience of someone who knows every inch of the urban environment. Oakland had this capacity to surprise. A city of violent contrasts, where the wealth of the technology industry coexisted side by side with communities marked by social vulnerability. Marcus knew this reality well. He had already transitioned between these worlds. It was then that Steph Curry came out, apparently alone, preparing for a morning training session. Marcus did not immediately recognize him. For him, he was just another well-dressed young man, walking with the typical confidence of someone who knows his place in the world. The moment happened almost imperceptibly. Steph passed close to Marcus, who discreetly held his sandwich. A quick look, a millisecond of human connection. Marcus, polite even in his vulnerable condition, tried to move aside so as not to obstruct the young man's path. "Good morning," said Marcus, his voice hoarse from years of silence and loneliness. Steph Curry stopped, something in his posture indicating genuine attention. His eyes, accustomed to reading complex plays on basketball courts, captured something in Marcus's figure, not just his physical condition, but a dignity that transcended appearances. "Good morning," Curry responded, his tone gentle and respectful. The movement around continued frenetic. Security, guards, journalists, stadium employees, everyone seemed to be in constant motion. But at that moment, for Marcus and Steph, the world seemed to have slowed down. It was then that Marcus, moved by a generosity impulse that accompanied him even in the most difficult moments, hesitated. For a second, he thought about offering half of his sandwich, but something stopped him. "Would you like to share?" he began to say, extending part of the sandwich. Steph, however, gently declined. Not with contempt or disgust, but with a delicacy that revealed genuine respect. "Thank you very much, but I've already had breakfast," Curry said, his soft smile breaking any possibility of embarrassment. "But I would like to talk a bit, if you don't mind." Marcus was surprised. He was accustomed to being invisible, to being ignored or, at best, avoided. That approach was completely unexpected. Curry did not seem interested in charity or in making a gesture for the cameras. There was something genuine in his interest, a human curiosity that went beyond appearances. "What's your name?" Steph asked, finding a nearby bench where they could sit. Marcus hesitated initially, years of street experience making him cautious, but something in Curry's gaze made him feel comfortable enough to respond. "Marcus," he said simply. "Marcus Johnson." The conversation that followed was neither a monologue of victimization nor a narrative of heroism. It was a genuine human exchange, where two completely different universes met for a few minutes. Steph listened to Marcus tell fragments of his story. Not with pity, but with an active listening that revealed genuine respect. Each word from Marcus revealed resilience. Each silence told stories of overcoming. They talked about Oakland, about the changes in the city, about how opportunities can arise and disappear quickly. Marcus briefly shared about his past as a technician, about the injury that changed his life, about his family separation. Curry listened attentively, asking pointed questions that demonstrated real interest. It was not an interview, but a conversation between two human beings. In that fleeting moment, two completely different realities met. A millionaire athlete and a man fighting for daily survival shared some minutes of human connection, breaking all social barriers. No one there imagined that this encounter would be captured by a nearby cell phone, that it would be shared thousands of times on social networks, that it would become much more than just a casual meeting. When they said goodbye, Marcus carried something more valuable than any food: the feeling of having been seen, of having been heard. Steph proceeded to his training, carrying with him a story that would make him reflect deeply about inequality and humanity. A simple encounter, two lives. A moment that would prove to be the beginning of an unexpected transformation. The photograph had something inexplicably powerful. A famous athlete and a homeless man, side by side, conversing with dignity and respect. In less than 24 hours, the image had become viral, traversing every corner of social networks. Sarah Martinez, a young freelance journalist specialized in human stories, was near the Chase Center that morning. Her sensitivity to capturing authentic moments had led her to register the encounter between Marcus and Steph without them noticing. The initial Instagram post seemed just another photo among thousands, but something in that image touched a sensitive fiber of society. Perhaps it was the genuineness of the gesture, the unexpected breaking of social protocols, or simply the pure demonstration of humanity in such polarized times. Social networks began to create narratives. Users shared the image with captions of hope and human reconnection. Steph Curry, known not just for his basketball talent, but also for his social work in Oakland, did not take long to become aware of the repercussion. His press office was flooded with messages. Journalists from all over the country wanted to understand the story behind that photo. Local Oakland media was the first to investigate. Who was Marcus Johnson? How had a homeless man had such a significant moment with one of basketball's biggest stars? What led them to such an intimate and meaningful conversation? Journalists began to scour Marcus's records. They discovered his history as an industrial technician, his financial fall after health problems, his family, separation. Each revealed detail added layers of human complexity to that story. Social networks created a wave of solidarity. Crowdfunding campaigns were initiated. Local Oakland companies mobilized to help. The casual encounter had transformed into a movement of hope. Steph Curry saw in the story not a moment of spotlight, but a real opportunity for social impact. His foundation, known for social projects in Oakland, began to articulate ways to help not just Marcus, but create broader support, programs for people in vulnerable situations. Curry's team did not want to just do charity. They wanted to understand the complete story, offer a real chance of reconstruction. They began to draw up a plan to locate Marcus, understand his full story, and create a support strategy that went beyond a simple momentary donation. Sarah Martinez, the journalist who captured the moment, began to investigate more deeply. Her reports began to reveal not just Marcus's story, but the reality of thousands of homeless people in Oakland. The story gained international dimensions. Television programs wanted to interview Marcus. Podcasts discussed the meaning of the gesture. Professors in universities used the example to debate social inequality and empathy. At Stanford, at Berkeley, at universities across the country, sociology and ethics professors began to use the story as a case study. How could a simple encounter reveal so much about social inequality, humanity, and hope? Marcus, in the midst of all this, continued to be the same simple man. His dignity, which had always accompanied him even in the most difficult moments, was now publicly recognized. Steph Curry's foundation began to draw up broader projects. It was not just about helping Marcus, but about creating sustainable support programs for people in vulnerable situations in Oakland. 6 months after that casual encounter, Marcus Johnson was a transformed man, not by miracle or instant charity, but by a gradual process of reconstruction, supported by the Curry Foundation and his own unwavering determination. The first step was stabilization. A temporary housing program welcomed him, allowing him to have a fixed address, a place to recover and reorganize. Documents were regularized, professional history updated. Each detail carefully worked to reintegrate him into the job market. The Foundation's team did not offer just financial support. They developed a personalized professional reintegration program. Marcus began with technical update courses, leveraging his previous industrial maintenance experience. Computing, new technologies, modern maintenance techniques, everything was carefully planned to prepare him for the current market. One of the biggest surprises came from his son, Michael. The story's repercussion had reached him, breaking years of silence and distance. The first meeting was tense, loaded with old grudges, but full of hope for reconnection. Michael, now graduated in mechanical engineering, saw in his father not the man who had lost everything, but someone with the strength to start over. Together, they began to rebuild not just a family relationship, but also a bond of mutual respect. Steph Curry discreetly followed the transformation, not as a savior hero, but as someone genuinely interested in Marcus's recovery process. His foundation continued to offer support, but without creating dependency. In 3 months, Marcus got a job as a maintenance technician at a local Oakland company. It was not the same position he had before, but it represented much more than a simple job. It was the recovery of his dignity, of his professional identity. Local companies, sensitized by the story, began to look differently at people in vulnerable situations. Marcus became an example of resilience, a symbol that one chance can completely change a life trajectory. His story transformed into a case study in social programs, universities, lectures about inclusion and opportunity. Marcus was invited to share his experience, not as an object of pity, but as an example of overcoming. The relationship with Steph Curry developed beyond that initial moment, not as a celebrity and beneficiary relationship, but as two people connected by a genuine moment of humanity. Curry saw in Marcus not a social project, but a human being with his own dignity and potential. On an August afternoon, Marcus sat with Michael in a cafe near the Chase Center. Looking at the stadium, they talked about the past, but mainly about the future. It was not a conversation of recovery, but of real hope. "I never imagined that a simple encounter could change everything," Marcus joked. Michael smiled. The distance between them had been filled not by grandiose words, but by concrete gestures of reconnection and love. Marcus's transformation was not just individual. His story had inspired social programs in Oakland, mobilized communities to look more humanely at people in vulnerable situations. Steph Curry used the story to create broader initiatives. His foundation developed training programs, partnerships with local companies for professional reintegration, support for homeless people. The story that began with a casual encounter had become much more than anyone could imagine. It was not about Steph Curry being a hero, nor Marcus being a rescued victim. It was about humanity in its purest form. Oakland continued to be a city of contrasts, but now it had a story that reminded everyone: hope can arise in the most unexpected moments, and human dignity is capable of overcoming any barrier. A simple gesture, 2 lives, a transformation that would echo far beyond that fleeting moment in front of the Chase Center. Years after that transformative encounter, Marcus Johnson continued to be a living symbol of resilience and hope in Oakland. His work at the industrial maintenance company had evolved, not just as a technician, but as a mentor to young professionals, especially those from marginalized communities. Michael, following in his father's footsteps, had become a respected engineer. Together, they developed a professional training project that offered opportunities for low-income young people in Oakland, honoring their family's story. Steph Curry continued to use his platform to create significant changes. The foundation that was born from that casual encounter had become a model of social intervention, not just in Oakland, but inspiring initiatives across the country. The original photograph, that fleeting moment between a famous athlete and a homeless man, remained a powerful symbol. Exhibited in museums, used in lectures, reproduced in books about empathy and social transformation. Sarah Martinez, the journalist who captured the moment, had written a best-selling book about the story, transforming that casual encounter into a profound study about inequality, hope, and human reconnection. For Marcus, each day was a confirmation that life can offer second chances, not magically or instantly, but through hard work, dignity, and genuine human connections. In lectures, interviews, community meetings, he always repeated the same message: humanity resides in the ability to see the other, to listen to them, to extend a hand even when everything seems impossible. Oakland continued to be a city of contrasts, but now it had a story that reminded everyone: hope can arise in the most unexpected moments, and human dignity is capable of overcoming any barrier. A simple gesture, two lives. A transformation that would echo through generations.